Welcome to my World History Notes, where I read from the book I wrote to teach homeschoolers world history, A Bible Believer Looks at World History, which you can find on lulu.com, amazon.com, or at the Bible Baptist Bookstore, or just follow me here and subscribe to my channel if you're of a mind. We're in the latter half of the 19th century. We just discussed very briefly the American Civil War. This is world history. I've discussed that more in depth in American history. And so right now we're just moving past. We've there was a war between Austria and Prussia in 1866 over Prussian Otto von Bismarck's secret treaties with France and Italy. He dissolved the Germanic Confederation of States and mobilized for war against Austria. This resulted in the North German Confederation of States becoming independent from Austria at the Treaty of Prague in the same year. Bismarck then shocked Napoleon III by turning on France, his ally. Bismarck's attempt to place an enemy of France on the throne of Spain then prompted Napoleon to start a war, believing that the French army could not be beaten. This war, called the Franco-Prussian War, took place in 1870 and 1871 and was a disastrous French defeat. France had to cede the prosperous borderlands between itself and the German states led by Prussia and pay an indemnity at the Treaty of Frankfurt. The territories of Alsace-Lorraine were occupied by the armies of the German Confederation. To get a view, excuse me, of what prompted this war, we need to go back to 1851 in France. The monarchy that was restored after Napoleon was defeated under Louis XVIII was deposed in 1830, and a constitutional republic had been set up under Louis Philippe. A revolution in 1848 resulted in Louis Philippe's abdication, and the Second Republic was created. Prince Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, nephew of the great conqueror of Europe, was elected president. In 1851, he, with the help of the army, seized control of Paris and responded to a Republican uprising with a slaughter called the Massacre of the Boulevards, and then assumed the powers of dictator, creating the Second Empire as Napoleon III. Napoleon II, the conqueror's son, spent the last 17 years of his life as a prisoner in Austria, having ruled as king of Rome and Parma under his father's authority in 1815. Anyway, Napoleon III led France in the Crimean War and finally in the disaster of the Franco-Prussian War. At the Treaty of Frankfurt, as it was being signed, ending the Franco-Prussian War, a reign of terror descended over Paris. The Garde Nationale overthrew the government of Paris and seized the city. The National Assembly fled, and the city was given over to the chaos of a mob. This mob ruling the city now was called the Paris Commune of 1871, and his socialist followers were called the Communards. The army returned and fought house to house to retake the city, and during the week of May 21st to 28th, 1871, more than 20,000 Communards were killed and nearly 10,000 jailed. The Communards murdered hostages they had taken and attempted to blow up the Notre Dame Cathedral. The German occupation of France ended in September of 1873 when the war indemnity agreed upon at the Treaty of Frankfurt was paid. From 1873 to 1895, the French expanded their colonial empire in the Far East, creating what was to become French Indochina, which included the territory of Vietnam of significance in the next century. In 1881, France occupied Tunis in an attempt to expand its domain in North Africa. Between 1886 and 1889, the army under General Boulanger threatened to overthrow the Third Republic, but the attempt never materialized. Between 1894 and 1906, France was rocked by the Dreyfus Affair, in which a Jewish captain was accused of treason on trumped-up charges that proved false by writer Émile Zola, resulting in the victim's release from Devil's Island, the brutal and inhumane penal colony off the coast of South America. The army was once again rocked by violent and bitter controversy. The decline of the French military, after 1,000 years of creating and directing much of European warfare and giving us many military terms like siege, advance, rampart, etc., dominating the Crusades as the Franks, all the way to Louis XIV using Europe as a training ground for his army, to Napoleon I's conquest of Europe, had come to an end, and the fallout will continue into the middle of the next century. France's martial spirit would become exhausted in an upcoming war. So we're going to talk about Italy, start with Italy next, as they struggle to unify into one country from many kingdoms. And I hope you'll study world history and come to your own conclusions. Thank you very much for watching.